All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining me. We'll go ahead and get started here. If you got your questions, go ahead and post them. It should be below the video if you're on a smaller screen, or to the right of the video if you're on a larger screen. If you got your questions, go ahead and post them. No big deal if you don't have any questions. Let's see here. Oh, there is one question here. I didn't think that there was. All right, sorry about that. I just refreshed it, and now I see the question. All right. So we will start here with Ray G. Says, hi, Q. Friend of mine who is considerably better golfer than I am says that I need to stop addressing the ball with shaft lean. Highly unnatural for me. Should my irons be vertical on address and shaft lean only comes on the downswing? So it's totally fine to have shaft lean at address. It's totally fine to not have shaft lean at address. The ball only cares about how you are presenting to it, how you're presenting the club to it at impact. That's it. That's the only thing it cares about. It does not care if you have shaft lean at address or not. I will say a lot of what you're going to be comfortable with as far as shaft lean at address is concerned. What has to do with it the most is your grip, right? So I would venture to say you probably have a stronger grip. And when you have a stronger grip, you're going to tend to be more comfortable with the shaft leaning forward at address versus the shaft being straight up and down, right? And here would be the thing too. Whenever somebody gives you a tip like that, ask why until something concrete makes sense, right? Because I would like to know why he thinks that, why he or she thinks that. Why does the shaft have to be straight up and down? Why? Why does it matter, right? So, if they can't really explain that to you, then it's probably not the best tip. You know what I mean? Because I couldn't explain it to you. And I mean, it's really about that. It doesn't mean that if you set up with the shaft straight up and down that you won't hit the ball better, right? It doesn't mean that. It just means that it's not a requirement, right? It's not something in the setup that has to have happen. When you look at all the best players in the world, every single one of them isn't going to have the shaft like that at address. That's just not the way it is. So generally, if you have a stronger grip, you're going to be more comfortable with the hands more forward, because in order to have the shaft kind of more straight up and down with a stronger grip, it's uncomfortable, right? So if I have my lead hand more on top, my trail hand more under, right? So let's say I have a really strong grip, strong as it gets, right? I got Brandon Steele grip here. If you're not familiar with who Brandon Steele is, he's a professional golfer, very strong grip, all right? So if you look here, if I were to have this shaft straight up and down, man, that would just not be very comfortable because I have so much tension in my arm here. My wrist, I feel like if I set up like this all the time, my wrist would probably hurt all the time because I'm putting my wrist in a position that's it's not very comfortable, right? For me, if I just have this strong grip, right, this really strong grip, and I just relax, right, this is what my address position would look like, and I have a considerable amount of shaft lean here. Now, on the other side of that, let's say I have a weak grip, and which is probably what your friend has, right? And I understand where your friend's probably coming from. Your friend's probably coming from experience like, listen, I set up this way and it works great for me. It'll work great for you too. It just doesn't always work that way, right? And I don't like dealing in absolutes either, right? What I mean by that is to be so adamant that, hey, I have to have the shaft like this, because you just have to look at the best players, right? And you're just not going to see that, right? You're not going to see every single one of them set up the same. You're going to see similarities, and the similarities would be what I would focus on, right? The ones and that's really what the top speed golf is all about. It's focusing on the things that all the best players do. If you look at the top speed golf system, that's what all the best players do. Every single one of them is doing the top speed golf system, right? So that's why we say, hey, focus on these 5 things, because it is what every single great player does. Male, female, does not matter. They all have similar. They all move their spine similarly, right? As far as the stable fluid spine. Now, there's definitely nuances, right? But it's very similar, right? If you look at the overall angle of the body, pretty much everybody's a little bit angled the way I address. Look at the top, they remain the same, right? They don't slide their hips way this way or do this, right? They all remain about the same. And as they come into contact, they get a little bit more angled away. Every single one of them. Every single one of them has a good shoulder turn. Even guys like John Rahm, Tony Finau, who have short swings, right? They make 90-degree shoulder turns, right? And here would be my argument to that. There are outliers to everything as well, right? There are, I think John Rahm used to not get to 90 degrees, but in the last, like when he first came on the scene, he wasn't quite getting to 90 degrees, but then he started getting to about 90 degrees, especially with his driver. But here's what I would say to that as well. If you can swing 115 to 120 miles an hour, even 110 to 120 miles an hour with a less than 90 degree swing, 90 degree shoulder turn, then by all means do that. That's totally fine. But on the other side of that, if you did turn your shoulders to 90 degrees, you probably hit the ball farther. And I think that's why John Rahm went from probably like 80 degrees to 90 degrees, because he probably picked up 10, 15 yards just by doing that, right? So that's really what it comes down to. And also, John Rahm has reasons for doing that. He was born with a club foot, and there are actually videos of him when he was younger making a huge turn, right? And his hands were like above his head like this. And then he found, through, just working on his game and stuff like that, that him having that longer swing because of his, what he was born with, the club foot, it's just unstable. He said it was unstable, right? So that's why he did that. And again, John Rahm can swing. Now, if John Rahm was only swinging 85 miles an hour with that swing, I would say let's try to increase that to kind of find the happy medium between being very unstable and actually having some club head speed, right? So that's, having some distance, because it's tough to be a good golfer if you don't have club head speed, because you're not hitting it far enough, right? The people that have club head speed, they got it a little bit easier. You can get away with a lot more if you have more club head speed. But anyway, going back to what I was saying, if you have a weaker grip where the thumbs are kind of going down the top of the shaft, kind of like this, it's actually uncomfortable for me to kind of set up like this. I actually kind of have to push my hands forward. It's not natural. It's more natural for me to set up with my hands right in front of me like this, and the shaft pretty close straight up and down. So really a lot of how you set up as far as shaft lean or no shaft lean, to be honest, it really does not matter that much. It's all about how, here would be, I'll throw this out there. Let's imagine you set up like this, right? This was your setup position, right? And then you came into contact and you just had a beautiful, it just looked like a professional. You look like this. Who is anybody to tell you that your setup is wrong when you are coming into impact in a great position? You're striping the ball, right? So that's really what it comes down to. Or on the opposite, let's say you set up like this, right? Backward shaft lean, and then you came into contact like this, right? Who's to tell you that's wrong? Look at Matt Wolff, for example. Matt Wolff, he gets set up like this, and then he goes and starts a swing, right? That's the way that he does it. Gets him into a great impact position. Who is anybody to tell him, hey, don't do that? No good players do that. Don't do that, right? He's a good player and he's doing it. So that's why you have to be a little bit careful. Anytime you get advice like that, I would just keep asking why. And if they don't come up with something that like directly improves a ball flight and or contact issue that you're having. So for example, let's say that you're slicing the ball, right? Well, if they're giving you a tip and they say, well, that's going to prevent you from slicing, right? Well, how is that going to prevent you from slicing? Right? Ask questions. I know that's not the easiest thing. If when you don't really know what's going, like if you're a beginner, I don't know, Ray, what your if you just started playing or if you've been playing for a long time or what, but if you're a beginner, I know that can be really tough. That's why I just recommend getting help from a professional, someone that knows what they're talking about. You have to be careful taking advice from a buddy, even if they're a considerably better golfer than you, because it's not if that's not really what they do or what they know the best. Now, if they're a great golfer and they teach and they've helped other people, and you know, there's lots of people like that. I used to be that person until I became an instructor, right? That's one thing, but I know it's tough out there when you're taking advice. Because even the best golfers in the world, a lot of times, are terrible teachers because they don't really know what's going on. They don't know why they're doing it. So, not to go off, I'm just talking because we don't have any more questions right now. So, if you got questions, want me to stop talking about this topic, ask a question, and I'll jump off of it. But basically, uh, Darren Clark, several weeks ago, there's a video going around of Darren Clark. I think it might even be on the PGA Champions page or whatever. But basically, it was just a video of Darren Clark talking about how shallowing out the club is it's baloney. Don't do it. He tried to do it, and he hit the ball terrible when he did it. Well, Darren Clark has been shallowing out the club for probably as long as he's been a professional golfer, even before then, right? He's been shallowing out the club for a long time. So when you're already shallowing out the club and then you try to shallow out the club more, right? Well, it's not going to be good, right? You can over shallow out the club. If you over shallow out the club, then the club's too far from the inside. You may even hit the ground behind the ball a lot, right? So it's not necessarily a good thing. Of course, if you're already shallowing out the club beautifully, and then you overdo shallowing out the club, of course you're going to hit bad shots because things are going to get off, right? But if you're coming down steep and over the top, and you go to shallowing out the club, which is where a lot of golfers are, most, I'd say, I don't know if it's most. I wonder what percentage of golfers, recreational golfers, are steep. I would say it's at least 50%, probably more than that, to be honest, right? I struggle with coming down steep sometimes. I got to work on it a little bit. It creeps in there. Like if I'm not practicing all the time, or not all the time, but if I'm not, practicing and playing a fair amount, right? I get a little bit steep. It's just what feels natural to me, and sometimes it's something that I have to work on to get better at. So everybody's a little bit different, but that's kind of what I would be looking at there. All right, keep the questions coming. Plenty of time. Well, y'all are coming up with questions. I'm just going to be answering emails and stuff here. you're just jumping on the office hours, I'm just waiting for questions to be asked. We answered the first one here, so if you got more questions, feel free to ask. If not, no big deal. No problem, Ray. Glad to help. Yeah. Uh, Best of luck. What I'd recommend doing is taking some lessons, man. I think I have spots available in my online lessons. So if you're interested, focus on the things that really matter to help you get better. You're just jumping on the office hours. I'm just waiting for questions to be asked. We haven't had any questions other than right in the beginning. So if you're just jumping on, that's why I'm not talking, because I don't have any questions to answer.
All right, we got about 15 minutes left if anybody has any more questions. If not, no big deal. All right, we got less than 10 minutes here. If we got any more questions, I do have to go right at 6, so please don't ask a question like 2 minutes till, because I may not have a chance to answer it, or you may get a very short answer. All right, since there's no questions being asked, I'm just going to wrap it up. Thanks everybody for joining me. We'll be back here tomorrow, Tuesday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next time.